Well, several people here in East Norman have been expressing concern, saying that this new turnpike could be in the path of their home or their business. Now, local leaders are stepping up to hear the concerns of the community.
This was a surprise to most of Norman.
A new turnpike system to provide greater access to more in Norman announced Tuesday, sparking anger from locals who could lose their homes or businesses.
They want someone to know that we have their best interests at heart and as a primary concern, and I will fight for everyone to have their voices heard.
Many asking the same question.
What are we going to do next? What's the next step?
And not just those here in Norman.
We've got calls from people in Moore, down in Noble and Purcell,
asking for transparency on property value, eminent domain, and the environmental impact.
People don't like change, so most of the folks that live out in Ward 5 bought their property 30 years ago and they just want to be left alone.
But leaders continue to fight for the voices of those concerned.
I'll fight for Ward 5 and I'll fight for Norman. We're on the same boat, so I'm about private property rights, and I need to ensure that whatever happens down the line, that these families who have to move are made whole as much as possible and they get the maximum value for their property.
And Richard Tortorello, the councilman for Ward 5 here in Norman, recommends going to his town hall meeting next Thursday at 7 p.m. and getting your house appraised now if there's a possibility it could be in the path of this new construction. Live in East Norman tonight, Elise Jones, KOCO 5 News.
Many homeowners in East Norman aren't happy with plans to extend one Oklahoma Turnpike directly through their neighborhoods. ODOT and the Turnpike Authority, now known as Access Oklahoma, revealed plans to extend the Kickapoo Turnpike 29 miles south from I-40 to connect to I-35 near Purcell. The state says it would provide an alternate route for traffic traveling from southern Oklahoma to northeast Oklahoma. News 9's Erica Lee has more.
Residents in East Norman are angry and frustrated, saying this turnpike expansion will ruin their roads and demolish their homes. State officials say this southern extension will give drivers easier access to the Southeast Metro. Those in the proposed construction area, however, feel the road will destroy businesses, existing roads, and homes they lived in for decades.
And across the street from me is my mother and my grandfather, who is almost 92. So there's a chance for all three of our homes to be displaced.
The map also shows the road near her home would be destroyed, along with the corner market that many residents depend on. Ross says she and many other residents have tried reaching out to officials multiple times, but have not received a response.
I have reached out to as low as the city council member with no return here. I have also reached out to ODOT and OTA. I have not had any return.
ODOT and OTA have eminent domain over the land, but officials say the proposed map is the least impactful to homeowners, business owners, and the environment. They go on to say they have time to work with affected property owners to be more mindful of their concerns. A representative for ODOT will be at Norman's Ward 5 Town Hall next week to answer residents' questions. We will have more information on News9.com. Reporting in the newsroom, Erica Lee, Oklahoma Zone, News 9.
They sure are buzzing. Now, there are close to, or actually more than hundreds of families and homes that could be impacted by this turnpike, including this bee farm right here. This farm sits on land that's about 50 acres, and the owner tells me he could lose a huge chunk of it.
And so this is a perfect area for the bee business. I mean, it couldn't be any better. It's got a good water source, a good food source.
Gary Atkinson and his wife making this land in Newalla into their little sanctuary.
I've fallen in love with this place.
So far, they've made new trails and created a small bee farm where the bees are buzzing.
There's 15 there, and there's about 17 over there.
Gary says about 10 acres of this foliage could be destroyed by the new turnpike. The land, a source of life for the bees.
I don't know exactly, what we're going to do, but the problem is with the traffic noise is a problem, vibration. We need pollinators too. I mean, they're very important to everybody's crops.
Not only could the bees be displaced, the wildlife too.
You'll see all kinds of wildlife out here. And it's just, we just keep displacing the wildlife. When are we going to stop, and for what? I mean, don't we have enough roads?
Gary and his wife sell the honey and use that as part of their income. They also plan to build a house on this land, but now they're not sure.
Hundreds of Norman residents shouting down the idea of a new turnpike coming into their neighborhood.
Tonight at a town hall, traffic engineers faced homeowners who may have to move. Our Barry Mangold is in Norman.
Amanda Carl, one Norman City Council member, said there could be hundreds of homeowners forced off of their property because of this turnpike expansion, which was just announced last week. Some folks here said they came to learn more about it. Others said they came to learn how to stop it.
To us, this was a punch in the guts.
More than 400 Norman and Cleveland County residents packed into a town hall Thursday to either learn about or speak down on a proposed expansion of the state turnpike.
It just causes us a little bit of heartbreak because this was our forever home that we built, and now it's not going to be the case.
Dana Fauble lives within a half-mile of the proposed route for the south expansion, which spans from 35 in McLean County to the Kickapoo Turnpike in Oklahoma County. There's also the east to west corridor, which connects the expansion to Newcastle. Fauble says she might not be able to sell her house to the state and fears it's only going to lose value.
I'm all for economic development and for growth, but it sure would have been nice to be able to have some preliminary conversations with folks before the route was just thrust upon us.
Norman's Ward 5 council member calls the expansion terrible and says it won't help the city.
There's very limited on-off ramps or the access points on this particular leg of the turnpike. So many citizens feel that there's no economic value to having it where it's at.
Engineers attempted to answer questions. Still, the crowd celebrated the idea of killing the project. The Oklahoma Turnpike Authority says they are still in the early stages of planning this project. They encourage anyone to reach out if they have questions or concerns. We have their contact information and their statement up on the News 9 app. In Norman, Barry Mangold, Oklahoma's Own, News 9.
Trouble toiling on a plan of proposed turnpikes, 3 of them actually, carving a path straight through several residential areas, turning families' dream homes into living nightmares.
Tonight, hundreds mobbing a packed town hall meeting, giving officials overseeing the plans a real piece of their mind.
News 4's Austin Brissett was there. He has more.
Hundreds of people filled this Southeast Norman church tonight asking questions of the officials involved with the Access Oklahoma project. All of them wondering what comes next whenever the turnpike makes its way south.
The best case scenario is this turnpike gets stopped, correct?
A standing ovation as those living in the Norman area and beyond express concern over a new proposed turnpike.
I-35 is getting more and more and more congested. I built
my house to die in.
Yes, ma'am.
You couldn't offer me enough money to buy my house.
Yes,
Governor Stitt unveiling the 15-year, $5 billion plan late last month, featuring 3 new turnpikes that officials say are needed to help shorten commutes and curb congestion.
Anybody that drives I-35 every day, whether you're a trucker or you're going to work or you're going to a ball game or whatever, you know exactly how congested it is.
So how many people here are directly affected?
But people living in the planned zones not on board, wondering what it will mean for their homes and even local wildlife, all while trying to wrap their heads around construction that could last for the next decade and a half.
You can fight this. They have been beaten before.
Now, the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority was not here for this particular meeting tonight. However, the officials did say that there will be other meetings in other towns as the project goes on. In Norman, Austin Brissett, Oklahoma's News 4.
Thank you, Austin. Yeah, the conversation about the new turnpike has started petitions, town halls, and Facebook fights. But just one town away, the outlook is different.
So there's the potential for economic growth, population growth, and just overall enhancement of the community.
We all moved out in the country to get away from the vehicles.
While the new turnpike caused controversy in some areas, others say it could help improve their economy.
We're happy that it's not bypassing our town, that it's going to allow traffic to come through Purcell and enhance the businesses in this area.
Purcell's Mayor Ted Cox says this isn't the only place positive impacts may be seen.
Oklahoma's a growing state. We need to look at the overall what's good for the state and what's good for the area and what's good for safety and economic growth.
Is it worth it? Sir. Yes or no? Sir.
Saying eventually others may embrace the change.
The people that are upset are obviously the loudest.
Even if it doesn't take our homes, you got the Turnpike going with all the noise.
My heart breaks for those that some of those people's families have owned the ground for 80 or 100 years.
Sympathizing with those directly impacted, but excited for what's to come.
From a community standpoint, from a city standpoint, we're excited about the opportunity to expand and grow, because you either grow or die.
And I reached out to Oklahoma Turnpike Authority and asked about some of the biggest questions from last night's meeting, but have yet to hear back on those. In Purcell tonight, Elise Jones, KOCO 5 News.
To us, this was a punch in the guts.
Tensions were high last night. Hundreds of angry residents yelling at engineers during a town hall meeting in Norman over the proposed turnpike expansion that will actually run through the Norman area.
News 9's Colby Thielen following this story. Colby, folks not only mad, but really heartbroken at what this could mean.
Yeah, exactly. And there's going to be a long time to talk about this. We'll be talking about it a lot over the coming months. For those in the path of the proposed expansion, it's about being forced to sell to the state through eminent domain. And for others, it's about what this could mean for their community and for their property value.
Turnpike.
It don't make no money. My property is in work 25 minutes of the extra time.
Sir. All of that happening before the official Q&A portion. This proposed extension of the Kickapoo Turnpike connects right down to I-35 near Purcell, so it runs right past Lake Thunderbird through rural Ward 5. Now, in addition to that Kickapoo extension, there's also a proposed east-west connector from Newcastle to Franklin. It's all part of a 15-year, $5 billion Access Oklahoma project. The governor and Secretary of Transportation say it's necessary based on future growth in that area. But more than 400 Norman and Cleveland County residents packed into a town hall last night to either learn about it or speak against it. Engineers attempted to answer questions, but many in attendance just want it killed altogether.
This is a terrible event happening to the residents of Ward 5, especially those that are losing their homes. Okay, so we have to show that we are there for them.
This was our forever home that we built, and now it's not going to be the case.
The engineers pointed out that this is day 9 of 15-year project, so they expect this area of the metro to double in size over the next 30 years. OTA says that with a long timeline like this, it allows for changes and for public feedback. The authority's full statement is posted over on the News 9 app. Colby Thielen, Oklahoma's Own, News 9.
So it's an awful feeling. They have no idea what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And so it's an awful feeling.
Good evening, I'm Maria Garcia. Tonight, community members in Norman are uniting after hearing news of an Oklahoma Turnpike Authority project that could impact their homes. They're taking a stand now. Fox 25's Peyton May took a walking tour of the neighborhoods that could be lost and spoke to those who are fighting to keep their roots in Norman.
For 30 years, Linda Berry and Pamela Groom have been living in this home.
We moved out here, saved our money, built our dream homes. Ours is intended to be a place where we could retire, which we just did.
Over the years, the Cinnamon Run and Cedar Lane Park neighborhoods have thrived.
We've all grown to become really good friends.
84 families live in this neighborhood, and after hearing about a new OTA project, the community says they're fighting for their homes.
We've done everything from crying on the patio to what are we going to do to how do we stop it.
One of the new OTA access projects includes building a southern extension to the Kickapoo Turnpike.
If this turnpike comes to this neighborhood, this entire neighborhood will be wiped off the face of the map here. So
OTA says the reason behind the infrastructure plan is to clear up some road congestion.
By adding this new capacity and these new reliever routes, what we do is we manage that traffic. And again, I think most importantly is some of these new routes will provide connectivity.
OTA expressed that there will be negotiations with property owners that are impacted.
And we'll do everything we can to minimize that impact.
But community members say no amount of money could make up for losing their neighborhood movie nights, celebrations, and forever homes.
You can't put a value on that as a neighborhood.
Currently, there isn't a timeline on the project, but those in the neighborhood say they're not giving up.
We're willing to fight for it do what we can. And do what we can, because we've worked too hard, and it means too much for us to just walk away and let it go.
In Norman, Peyton May, Fox 25 News.
The mistake that these people made is they chose the wrong place to call home.
And their properties and homes in the potential path. A new turnpike planned, and lawmakers stepping in, hoping to stop it.
We had to kind of just scramble real fast.
Turnpike turmoil, and tempers are rising.
Now lawmakers are stepping in, hoping legislation will stop the project near Norman from moving forward. News 4's Ashley Moss joins us with details. Ashley.
That's right. Anger over the proposed turnpike expansion is growing. Today, lawmakers on the House floor scrambling for solutions to stop that expansion, at least in Norman.
Somewhere between 600 and 800 homes are going to be destroyed by this.
Norman resident Michael Nash zeroing in on the impact of turnpike expansion and how he came up with the numbers.
It's just taking the map that they provided, that the OTA provided us, overlaying that on Google Maps, and just following the trail and counting.
It means roughly 15 homes per square mile that could be destroyed with turnpike expansion within the Norman city limits, and that's just through 2020. From his research, he says the number could be up to 5 times higher than the number of homes destroyed for every turnpike built since 1993. ODOT officials saying in a partial statement to News 4, quote, "The new alignment on the Access Oklahoma website shows an approximately 1,200-foot wide corridor. As engineers begin to do the design work, we anticipate the corridor will be narrowed to 400 to 600 feet wide, greatly reducing the number of homes impacted. This allows us some latitude to adjust the alignments to avoid impacts to homes, environments, etc." Lawmakers in the House today coming together for a Hail Mary, hoping for an amendment to House Bill 4088.
We had to kind of just scramble real fast. And right away, you try to look for what's called a shell bill or something we can run to stop it legislatively.
The original bill doesn't affect Norman or the newly proposed turnpike, but lawmakers say an amendment could slow down or eliminate potential devastation.
The one that goes through Ward 5 in East Norman, I don't see anything that comes out of that, because if you do say, okay, we're going to build up around that, that's Norman's water source, that's the aquifer, untold amounts of wildlife.
The only mistake that these people made is they chose the wrong place to call home.
Well, we just found out in the last hour that amendment to House Bill 4088, which could have eliminated or minimized that impact to Norman, did not go through. But lawmakers, reiterating their opposition to the turnpike expansions, have vowed to continue that fight.
Thank you, Ashley. The governor's office weighing in this afternoon saying, quote, "We are at the earliest stages of a long and extensive process. The Oklahoma Turnpike Authority will continue to hold public meetings and engage with Oklahomans to provide updates and receive feedback as engineering work progresses and exact turnpike corridors are further refined."
Big pushback tonight against a proposed turnpike extension planned through Norman.
From City Hall up to leadership at the state capitol, lawmakers tell our Barry Mangold they either doubt or downright oppose this plan. Barry's live at the Capitol now.
Yeah, Amanda, Carl, less than 2 weeks ago today, the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority announced its plan to build 2 new turnpikes that cut through Norman. Today, a group of Democrats deliberately tried to stop that from happening, and we now know there's a rally planned here for later this month.
This closed-door decision-making process, it's not acceptable.
Norman Representative Marilyn Bell speaking after an attempt to pass legislation that would halt the state's plan to expand the Kickapoo Turnpike into Norman. That attempt failing.
If the OTA and the Department of Transportation had reached out before publishing this map, the public response would have surely given them pause.
The Oklahoma Turnpike Authority plans to build 2 new turnpikes through north and eastern Norman. Norman Senator Rob Standridge is the majority whip and says he is concerned about the number of private properties that could be impacted and the potential effects on the local water supply.
I'm actually seriously looking at how I can use my position and my seniority to make a difference and to slow down the conversation to make sure that everything has been looked at.
Last week, hundreds attended a heated town hall to discuss the plans. Senator Mary Boren says she's helping a group that plans to rally at the Capitol March 23rd.
I wouldn't say that I am organizing a rally, but I can say that I am welcoming a rally.
And the OTA does not yet have an estimate on how many private properties could be impacted by the construction of these new roadways. It says that the design phase and environmental studies for these projects will take place later this year. Live at the Capitol, Barry Mangold, Oklahoma's own News 9.
Okay, Barry.
It's what Linda McKinley calls a picture-perfect plot of land. The professional photographer has been blessed with 30 years of backyard photo shoots. Some of her favorite subjects can be seen here, flocking to her feeders. But she's now afraid these moments might soon fly the coop.
They just don't get it. This is kind of the last section of, land that's like this.
Threatening her humble piece of paradise. A new route that could potentially uproot hundreds of Norman residents. State transportation officials planning a massive turnpike expansion say they'll soon be paving a better path for drivers. However, in the process, they'll have to plow through properties like Linda's.
Rooftops. That's what they call us, is rooftops. That's all we are.
If she's displaced, she says finding a location like this one will be near impossible.
Keeps me up every night.
She also worries what will happen to her beloved birds.
It definitely will kill the wildlife here.
And worst of all, not only will she be forced to leave her home, along with it, she'll probably have to pack up her passion.
I think they really should look elsewhere.
Now, even though an initial plan for this expansion has been presented, the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority say that they're still narrowing down an exact location. For more information on this planned project, you can find it on our website at okcfox.com. Reporting live in Oklahoma City, Rebecca Breyer, Fox 25 News.
Not only are Norman residents in an uproar over possibly being displaced or having their homes destroyed, the new Turnpike expansion now has wildlife experts speaking out.
Fox 25's Rebecca Pryor spoke with one who is calling the new roadway a potential catastrophe. Rebecca.
That's right. The expert that I spoke with says that the turnpike would threaten one of the state's most treasured wildlife sanctuaries, leading her to question why no environmental specialists were consulted before its path was planned. For years, this quiet oasis has been home to all kinds of creatures, but now everything that you see in the trees and find in the fields may soon disappear.
Anytime you put a road by any kind of natural habitat, you're going to destroy that habitat.
Inger Gufrida, the executive director of the state's oldest and largest wildlife rehabilitation center, warning plans for the new Turnpike expansion project cut right through one of central Oklahoma's most important wildlife corridors.
On any road, there are animals that are hit by cars, but imagine a high-speed highway blocking animals from their primary water source.
Not only would several endangered and threatened species be at stake, with the road running right next to Lake Thunderbird, she says our drinking water could also be contaminated.
And you've got petroleum runoff going right into that lake. You've got pollution going right into that lake. And so to characterize this as not having any any major human impact is just false.
Even though nothing's been set in stone, proposals for the 6-lane highway have already been laid out and presented, despite the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority admitting they've not conducted any studies to evaluate potential impacts on the environment. Director of Strategic Communications for the Transportation Cabinet, Jessica Brown, returning one of Fox 25's many calls just before news time to explain why.
That is how the process works. We find the best area, the best footprint to where the construction should take place, and then we do the environmental studies.
How can you know what the best spot is and pick the best spot if you haven't done any studies to see how it might impact the environment?
The environment's not the only thing we look at. The environment's one thing to look at, and it's very important to all of us. But we have to look to see where we can best put a facility such as a turnpike or other roads in an area to what you're talking about is connecting one side of Oklahoma City to the other.
There just don't seem to be enough benefits for this turnpike given the costs.
Now, the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority does plan on performing environmental impact studies in the future. And when I asked if the findings could result in the roadway being moved from the proposed location, Brown said nothing is off the table yet.
Reporting live in the studio, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 25 News.
More opposition tonight on plans to build a new turnpike in parts of Cleveland County, and this time it's from the Mayor Brea Clark. News 9's Erica Lee is in Norman with her concerns, new here at 6.
Mayor Clark says the city of Norman isn't going down without a fight. She and the rest of the city leadership is united against the Turnpike expansion project. Clark strongly opposed the Turnpike expansion in a Facebook post written Tuesday night. The mayor says Turnpike officials should have talked to the community before going public with their plan.
I think that if residents had a better idea of what was coming 10, 20 years ago, they might not have bought land out there. They might not have built houses.
Clark says the proposed route seen on the Turnpike's website might be smaller than what appears. It'll be entirely based on the feedback from people living in the area. Construction is also far in the future.
This is still several years out for the Norman community, which again gives us hope that we will be successful in either changing or completely stopping this route through our community.
The proposal today reminds Clark of a similar expansion project from 1999.
My understanding is it's the same concept that was first unveiled in 1999, which we said no to then, and we're going to say no to again now.
If you have land in the area near the proposed turnpike, Clark suggests holding off on selling at this time.
But my concern is that once a few people start selling, it will create a natural path that will help this thing get momentum and move forward.
That's because she says the Turnpike Authority hasn't begun discussions with people on buying their property yet. Mayor Clark's resolution opposing construction will be on the Norman City Council agenda for March 22nd. Reporting in Norman, Erica Lee, Oklahoma Zone, News Now.
We've told you about neighbors outraged about a new turnpike plan that they say could impact their homes and businesses, but tonight, how this plan could also hurt the wildlife. Employees at Wildcare Oklahoma and Noble say they are worried about the impact too.
The executive director saying this road will affect the lives of thousands of wild animals.
I mean, they can't get across these major roads. It will cut off their access to the lake. It will destroy their habitat. It will destroy the wetlands that are essential for all kinds of different species, including endangered species.
Employees at Wildcare said the tentative turnpike route there is about half a mile from the front of their property. They think the increased noise and pollution would have a really big negative impact on their animals. And they're also worried about the impact on people who would have to give up their land and homes for that turnpike. State lawmakers must pass a bill to make this turnpike a reality. The State House passed it yesterday with a vote of 68 to 25. It is now in the state Senate.
It just causes us a little bit of heartbreak because this was our forever home that we built, and now it's not going to be the case.
Norman residents angry over plans to expand Oklahoma's turnpike system through the city have a new ally this morning. News 9's Colby Thielen is live at the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority with what Norman Mayor Brea Clark says she's going to do about it. Colby?
Hey, good morning. The Norman mayor says that she believes that Turnpike officials should have come to the community and talked about this plan long before making it public. She believes that if people had known 10, 20 years ago what was coming, they may not have built or bought a house there in the area. But the OTA, the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, says that it is a long-range plan. In total, the $5 billion Access Oklahoma project is expected to take 15 years. And the OTA says it plans to find a way least impactful to homeowners, businesses, and the environment. Now, the reason for the expansion, the OTA expects this area of the metro to double in size over the next 30 years. Still, the mayor says city leadership is united in opposition and recognizes construction is far in the future.
This is still several years out for the Norman community, which again gives us hope that we will be successful in either changing or completely stopping this route through our community.
In the meantime, Clark encourages residents to hold off on selling, saying it could create a natural pathway for the project to move forward. And of course, at this point, this is just a proposed route. Nothing is finalized. The mayor also expects to bring a resolution opposing this project before the city council on March 22nd. We'll continue to follow the latest and bring it to you. At OTA, Colby Thielen, Oklahoma Zone, News 9.
Now to what opponents hope will be a potential roadblock for a planned turnpike. We've been following this. The new toll road would stretch from I-40 east of Norman south to the Purcell area. The plans have already faced mounting pushback from those whose homes and lands are in the direct path. But now something that could hinder the construction. News 4's Ashley Moss explains how some hope rose rocks will be the key to saving their properties. It's new at 5.
And it's a national treasure, Oklahomans say. You can't find it just anywhere, only found in a 1 to 2 mile band from Draper Lake to Noble.
Keep looking, Emma. You'll find some more.
It is a very rare geologic feature.
Just east of Norman is where you're likely to happen upon rose rocks. It's one of the few areas they're located in the world.
This has been acknowledged as one of the biggest pieces. It's above surface, known, at least in this part of the country.
And Stan Ward says it's a national treasure.
To have this treasure here on your property is a blessing that I want to try to preserve.
But this spot is included in part of the $5 billion Turnpike expansion plan that continues to come under fire. Now Ward and others hope a conservation status will protect the rock, along with hundreds of acres of land and homes that surround it, from being bulldozed.
We can farm it, we can put agricultural buildings on it, but we cannot develop it for any residential purpose. It's not just for us, it's for the entire community.
One question on their minds: why the Turnpike Authority is moving forward with the plans before doing environmental impact studies. Officials with the OTA says they're on the way.
Then the designers will actually look and see what is out there, what needs to be mitigated or avoided.
And folks who live near here hope the research will point to a need to preserve the area before it's too late.
Because once it's gone, it's gone. It's not going to reform again.
There are just a lot of things that they didn't take into consideration when they masterminded this project.
Ashley Moss, Oklahoma's News 4.
Thank you, Ashley. The OTA says the studies could take up to 6 months to complete. Oklahomans who want to weigh in can go to accessoklahoma.com to comment.
The Oklahoma Turnpike Authority's expansion plan is getting very close to what was a rural black schoolhouse. Supporters are worried the expansion plan will take away from the significance of the now historic landmark. News 9's Angelicia Bruton with that story.
The Oklahoma Historic Preservation Office says they've received several calls from people concerned with how close the Turnpike expansion will get to a historic school in Cleveland County. It's currently not in the proposed path, but they say they're paying close attention. One proposed route on the Access Oklahoma Turnpike plan would expand the Kickapoo Turnpike near the historic Union School 19½ in New Walla.
At least for a time, it was the only segregated school operating in Cleveland County. This was during the time of segregation and Jim Crow segregation, especially in Oklahoma.
The rural schoolhouse still sits on an unpaved road on the corner of Southeast 149th Street. Matthew Pierce says they hope to keep it that way.
We are tasked in collaboration with the National Park Service to implement the National Historic Preservation Act. And there's a specific provision in that act that basically is triggered whenever there's any federally licensed, permitted, or funded project. We then assess the impact of those projects, and that's both above ground and below ground.
The proposed route is more than a mile away from the school. Jessica Brown with the Department of Transportation says planning is in early stages, but the school should not be impacted.
That proposed route is about 1,200 feet wide. We will narrow it down to about 600 feet wide. So there's a little bit of room in there, wiggle room within that corridor.
If you have greater development in that area, that can start to infringe, it would start to have what we would call a cumulative effect on that property's historic integrity, in this case its setting.
The Historic Preservation Office will be a consulting party on this project throughout the process. Angelicia Bruton, Oklahoma's Own, News 9.
There's growing opposition to the state's new turnpike expansion. This week, a Norman group is launching a grassroots movement against the proposed path.
As Fox 25's Rebecca Pryor reports, that includes a new website and Facebook page.
Trying to turn the minds of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, a grassroots movement against the new expansion is gaining steam.
And talk about a whirlwind. We formed this organization, and there's already 3,000 or 4,000 people in the group ready to go.
Pike Off OTA president Michael Nash says people have been reaching out left and right following the launch of this website and this Facebook page. Both detail numerous reasons why Norman residents are against a 6-lane roadway running through town. Within 24 hours, No More Turnpikes Oklahoma already mounting 5,000 members.
I think people are finally starting to see what's going on and saying that it's imperative for us to finally put a stop to it.
The $5 billion 15-year expansion plan includes 55 miles of new roads, some of which are set to cut through several Norman neighborhoods. OTA has yet to release exactly how many people will be displaced, but Nash says, according to his count, it's between 600 to 800 homes.
I did some research online. I could not find any project anywhere in the United States that had displaced this many people.
He says the sheer number of people who will suffer the consequences of this project is what sets them apart from previous attempts to pump the brakes on other expansions. Along with their online presence, the group will also be making their voices heard at a number of upcoming events, such as Norman City Council meetings. They plan to attend Tuesday's meeting, where council is expected to vote on a resolution that would, quote, express the city's opposition to the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority's Access Oklahoma plan as it impacts Norman.
And so we're going to be waiting with bated breath, hoping that it passes and sends a clear message that this project is going to be constructed against the municipality's will.
That was Rebecca Pryor reporting. Tomorrow's City Council meeting will be held at City Hall. It's open to the public and starts at 6:30.
Now to the growing turmoil over the plan to build a new turnpike.
McIntyre Law Chopper 4 flying over the proposed path that stretches east of Norman and south to the Purcell area. But now a grassroots effort to stop those construction plans. And as News 4's Ashley Moss reports, the group is getting help from someone who's fought against turnpikes in the past.
Setting the scene ahead of tonight's City Council meeting here in Norman, this group of Oklahomans has come together with a clear message for OTA: back off.
Everybody needs to see that if the OTA can do this here, there's no reason for them to not do it everywhere.
The grassroots group, called Pike Off OTA, is hoping this resolution, up for consideration at Norman City Council meeting tonight, addressing the city's opposition to the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority's Access Oklahoma plan, is passed.
What we have to do is get the word out to the public and have everyone join us, not just in Norman, from across the state, because if they can push this turnpike through Norman, they can push it through anywhere.
Joining them, Dave Moore, who has spent a quarter-century battling turnpike projects.
One of the proposed routes actually was going to go on top of my house.
Moore won that round.
The city councils of Norman, Choctaw, Jones, and Arcadia passed, all those city councils passed resolutions saying we can't support this project.
And believes the same strategy can work again.
It's the beginning of the end of the East Norman toll road. That's what's getting ready to happen tonight.
In a statement today, officials saying, quote, OTA's public response team continues communicating with concerned citizens who have reached out for information on the program.
I'm hoping that it can be the first in a long string of nails that will be nailed into that coffin and just put it to rest permanently.
Ashley Moss, Oklahoma's News 4.
The Norman City Council joining members of the community in pushing back against plans to build new turnpikes in the city. It is the latest step against the proposed highways. News 9's Barry Mangold is following the outrage tonight from Cleveland County.
Multiple members of the city council tonight said that the planned construction of turnpikes has united Norman against the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. The council decided to formally oppose the plan until the OTA conducts an environmental impact study.
We're going to show the OTA and Governor Stitt what happens when you pick on Norman, especially when we're united.
Norman City leadership unanimously opposing the state's plan to build new turnpikes.
We have no decision-making power on this, but we will stand next to you in this fight.
The Oklahoma Turnpike Authority is planning 2 new turnpikes in northern and eastern Norman, the latter slated to run west of Lake Thunderbird, which is the city's source of drinking water. The OTA says it's planning an environmental impact study now. Norman residents have banded together to come up with ways to stop the turnpike construction under the name Pike Off OTA.
We're going for it. It's a shot, right? But we only need one shot to land.
Amy Serrato, a geotechnical engineer and OU professor, says she hopes rocks can help their effort, specifically the barite rosette, also called rose rocks. She says the planned turnpike runs through one of the only areas where the rocks can be found, so she plans to get a federal designation for the site in hopes it will stop the construction.
Since we are the only place in the world that has these barite rose rocks, it would be a travesty to have anybody come in and bulldoze and pave those over.
And tomorrow, a group of Norman residents plan to rally at the state capitol to encourage state lawmakers and Governor Kevin Stitt to take action. In Norman, Barry Mangold, Oklahoma's Own News 9.
Norman city leaders are taking a stand against the new Oklahoma Turnpike expansion. At tonight's city council meeting that's just now wrapping up, members unanimously passed a resolution rejecting the proposed path.
Fox 25's Rebecca Pryor was at that meeting. She joins us now live with the details. Rebecca?
Yeah, guys, Norman City Council is saying that they're ready to present a united front on this issue, and along with them, dozens of Norman residents also rallying ahead of tonight's meeting.
And the program threatens the homes.
Michael Nash, president of a growing grassroots group dubbed Pike Off OTA, speaking to dozens of frustrated homeowners, some even showing up with signs and T-shirts discussing plans to pump the brakes on Oklahoma's new turnpike expansion.
There's never been a road project that has been this destructive and had this much collateral damage.
The group's Facebook page, which was just launched this week, already mounting more than 5,000 members. Their goal, preventing the proposed toll road expected to connect Moore and Norman to Oklahoma City, despite the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority stressing they're still far from setting an exact path. Some residents feel it's already a done deal.
They're trying to get this on the road before we have a chance to stop it.
Among concerns that more than 1,000 will be displaced and hundreds of homes will be destroyed, environmental impacts are also top of mind. Many worrying what the highway might mean for wildlife and Lake Thunderberg, the community's main water supply.
There's significant environmental impacts, and we're working with the federal government to try to have them come in and put their foot down and stop the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority from doing this.
And now those fears and frustrations are being echoed by Norman City Council. Council members unanimously passing a resolution expressing disapproval of the expansion and demanding extensive environmental studies be completed.
Are all pretty united on opposing what this is going to do to our community. We're opposing the OTA.
One house is one house too many for this turnpike, and we're going to fight this together.
However, in a statement sent to Fox 25, OTA claims they're already working to do just that. They've begun searching for environmental experts and say their studies will be in accordance with both state and federal regulations.
Now, the rallies don't end here. Tomorrow afternoon, that group, Pike Off OTA, says that they'll also be protesting inside the state capitol. Reporting live in Norman, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 25 News.
Turnpike turmoil continues tonight in Norman. Dozens packing a town hall meeting, telling the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority to, quote, pike off and take their plans elsewhere. We're talking about a proposal to put 2 new turnpikes in Norman. One along Indian Hills Road connecting Norman, Moore, and Oklahoma City. The other in East Norman, extending the Kickapoo Turnpike west of Lake Thunderbird. News 4's Caitlin Ogle in Norman with more from tonight's meeting.
Tonight, the Norman City Council actually passed a resolution against the expansion, praising the grassroots Pike Off movement for a job well done. But the group says this is just one victory and a long fight.
Best thing they can do to win is to take away our willingness to fight.
This is unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Pike Off OTA cheering as the city of Norman votes unanimously to oppose a portion of the Turnpike expansion, a $5 billion plan extending the Kickapoo from I-40 to I-35 near Purcell.
And they chose lightning traffic over Norman residents. I will never stand for that.
Many say the expansion means they'll lose their homes.
You are no longer a person, you're a rooftop.
Among them, a Norman City councilor.
My dad died there. My family pets are buried there. Like, this was my childhood home when I moved to Oklahoma, and so because of this stupid turnpike, it will be gone.
Others worry about the expansion's impact on the environment, specifically Lake Thunderbird.
This is our drinking water, not only for our community, but for 2 other communities.
And that's what the City of Norman's resolution wants to address, saying there needs to be more environmental impact studies first.
And there is no data showing how this will impact our environment.
In a statement to News 4, the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority says it, quote, assigned a dozen engineering design teams to start work on projects within the expansion. And that, quote, these assignments triggered the beginning of preliminary studies and initial designs. But Pike Off OTA and the city not buying it and not budging.
I want you to let Governor Stitt know what happens when you pick farmland to develop without getting input from our residents.
And tomorrow at noon, the group is actually holding a rally called Go Away OTA at the Capitol's Rotunda. And Mayor Brea Clark says she'll be standing right there with them. In Norman, Caitlin Ogle, Oklahoma's News 4.